And here we are with part 2 of Avacyn Restored. It's full spoilers for limited. This is going to be blue. So here we've got Alchemist's Apprentice. Well, let's just jump right in. Alchemist's Apprentice. It's a 1/1 for 2 that you can sacrifice it to draw a card. Definitely a filler card, but not a bad one. Has the best, or has my favorite flavor text. Side effects may include Foul Orders, Scalding Steam, and Spontaneous Non-Existence. I like it. Reminds me a lot of a couple cards from Scars of Mirrodin and stuff that I cannot remember their name. That was a 1/1 that when it died, you drew a card. So that was better. But this is still a solid one if you're playing blue. Amass the Components is a 4-mana sorcery that draw 3 cards and put a card from your hand on the bottom of your library. Definitely one that I like. If you're playing some sort of blue control-ish deck, this can certainly... I mean, you're essentially getting a massive amount of value for 4 mana. I like Amass the Components a lot. Next you have Arcane Melee. Instant sorceries cost 2 less to cast. Answer? Probably don't play it. Move on. Now we have Captain of the Mists. It's a 3-mana 2/3 that whenever another human enters the battlefield under your control, untap him. And he can tap or untap target permanent. This guy's pretty good. Tappers are solid, and he's a pretty good rare for what he is. Definitely a card you would consider playing. Next you have Crippling Chill. 3 mana, instant, tap target creature doesn't untap, draw a card. Meh, I don't like it very much, to be honest. Maybe if you need a card, this is something to play, but Feeling of Dread was better, and Frost Breath was also better. Next you have Deadeye Navigator. It's a 6-mana 5/5 Soul Bond that as long as it's paired with another creature, each creature has colorless blue. Exile this creature, then return it to the battlefield under your control. So you have to be wary with this, because remember, when it goes away, the Soul Bond goes away if it's the other creature and it doesn't have Soul Bond. If you do it to this guy, you can just change who the Soulbound target is every time, which is not bad. I like this guy. He's also pretty big. So definitely something that I like if you're playing blue. It's pretty good. Next you have Devastation Tide. 5 mana, return all non-land permanents to their owner's hand. It's a lot like Evacuation-ish. I mean, it's pretty good. It's a sorcery, which is important, but it's got a miracle cost as well. Definitely a pretty good one in my eyes if you're playing blue. Next is Dreadwaters, which is 3 colorless blue. Target player mills X, where X is the number of lands you control. You have to be wary. I don't think there's nearly enough mill cards to make it work in Avacyn Restored, so I don't want to get sucked into the mill trap, even though this card seems alright. I mean, it mills 5 or 6 for 4 mana, which is not terrible, but not good. Next you have Elgod Shieldmate. It's a 4-mana 2/3 Soul Bond that as long as it's paired with another creature, they have hexproof. I really like this creature, especially at common. It's so good. It's hard for them to break Soul Bond, and it's just really good, and you can start Soul Bounding other. It's good. Good. Next you have Favorable Winds. 2 mana, creatures you control with flying get +1/+1. Meh. I mean, if you have the all flyers deck, this is quite good. Otherwise, don't even consider it. Fettergeist is a 3-mana 3/4 flyer that at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice unless you pay 1 for each other creature you control. I don't think this one's I don't think this is good. Not a 3-mana 3/4, it would be fine, but that is just too much of a cost in my eyes to keep playing this card. Next, we've got Fleeting Distraction. Target creature gets -1/-0 and draw a card. Not a card. Move on. If you need something, it's cantrips, but otherwise, no. Next is Galvanic Alchemist. 3 mana for a 1/4 Soul Bond that as long as it's paired with another creature, you can have 2 colorless blue untap this creature. Not that good. I mean, it's a horned turtle with some upside, which is pretty good, but otherwise, meh. Next, you have Geist Snatch. Counter target creature spell. Put a 1/1 blue spirit token onto the battlefield. I'm not a huge fan of counterspells in limited formats, unless they're really good. And in this case, this one's not spectacular. If you don't have cards to play, they'll say, "Why did you leave 4 mana open?" And it's kind of iffy, especially since it's counter target creature spell. So I don't recommend it. If you want to play a counterspell, sure, but otherwise. Ghost Forms, colorless blue. 2 creatures are unblockable. That certainly is a decent finisher. I don't think it's that good, but I mean, sometimes drawing this can certainly win you the game. Next is Ghostly Flicker, 2 colorless blue, exile 2 artifacts, creatures, and lands, and return them to the battlefield. I think it's okay. It's pretty cool that you get all this bouncy stuff, and if you have cards that can take advantage of it, it's very good. Say, for example, I'm going to jump one. Griff Vanguard. It's a 5-mana 3/2 that when it enters the battlefield, draw a card. Great with all the bounce effects that's going around. And it's a 3/2 flyer that draws you a card for 5. Which is, almost as good as, or it's almost the same as Skyhill School. Because that was a 3/3 and you looted instead. So this is pretty good in my eyes. Next is Ghostly Touch. That whenever this creature attacks, you may tap or untap target permanent. I mean, I'm generally not a fan of enchantments, but this is definitely a good one. It certainly can make stuff interesting. Pardon. Next we have Haven Ghoul Scab. It's a 6-mana 4/5 that when it attacks, return another creature you control to its owner's hand. And this guy I don't like so much, unless you have the ability to, again, abuse bounce effects. Otherwise, I wouldn't consider it. Now we have Infinite Reflection. When it enters the battlefield, attached to your creature, each non-token creature you control becomes a copy of that creature, and non-token creatures you control enter the battlefield as a copy of enchanted creatures. Great fun in EDH. I think it's alright in a sealed deck. Just don't cast this on a legendary creature. Next you have Into the Void. 4 mana, return 2 target creatures to their owner's hands at a sorcery. Yep, this is definitely one that gets you some tempo, and I like it a lot. If it was an instant, it would be too good, but it's great in my eyes. Next we have Latch Seeker. It's a 3 mana 3/1 unblockable, which actually I think is not that bad in this format if you have a decent aggressive start. Now we have Lone Revenant. 5 mana 4/4 hexproof. When it deals combat damage to a player, you can look at the top 4 cards of your library and put one into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library if you control no other creatures. I like this guy a lot. Already a 4/4 hexproof for 5 is pretty solid, and the ability it has can certainly influence the game. Next you have Lunar Mystic. Whenever you cast an instant, you may pay 1. If you do, draw a card. So it's a 4/4, or it's a 2/2 for 4, sorry. I mean, if you have a ton of instants you can abuse with this, it can be fine. It's probably better in sealed than draft, but it seems alright. Next we have Mass Appeal. Draw a card for each human you control. If you're going humans, great card. Otherwise, no. Simple enough, right? Now we have Mistraven. It's a 4 mana 2/2 that when it enters the battlefield, return target creature to its owner's hand. This is very good. It's Ether Adept for 1 more and has flying. Play this card if you're going blue. This is a good blue signal. Definitely a card you want to play. Next you have Mist Hologriffin, which is a card I like more than I should. It's a bad mythic in that it's a 4/4. It's a 3. Why do I say that? It's a 3/3 flyer for 4 that you can cast it from exile, and that's pretty cool. That effect is mythic feeling a little bit because it's never happened before, but otherwise, I'd pay 4 mana for a 3/3 flyer. It's not. I mean, a 5 mana is better, or playing 5 mana is, more normal. So this is like a normal flyer in this format, which is fine. Next we have Nephalia Smuggler, which I like a lot. It's blue, and then for 4 mana you can exile another target creature and then return it to the battlefield. AKA, all your creatures are removal proof, are great blockers, great creature in my eyes. Next we have Outwit, counter target spell that targets a player. Meh. There's not many spells that target a player. It's definitely something in the sideboard. Now we have Peel from Reality. Return target creature you control and target creature you don't control to their owner's hands. Not bad, not great. I mean, this is a reprint and it saw some play. Next you have Rot's Crown Ghoul. It's a 5 mana for a 3/3. When it dies, put the top 5 cards of their library into his or her graveyard. As I said, not many good mill cards, so I'm going to say he's not that good. Next we have Scrapskin Drake, 3 mana for a 2/3 flyer that can only block creatures with flying. I don't like him very much. I mean, the 2/3 flyer is fine, but since he can't block other stuff, it's not that good. Then we have Second Guess, counter the target spell if it's the second spell cast this turn. As I said, don't like counter spells. If you're playing more controlling, maybe this is good, otherwise, meh. I mean, the good thing is if you cast a spell, and then they try and cast an instant on your turn, that is the second spell cast this turn, so you could counter that. Next is Spectral Prison, which is a lot like Ice Cage, I think. Colorless blue enchant creature, it doesn't untap, but when it becomes the target of a spell, you sacrifice Spectral Prison. So it's not that good, but it's target of a spell, not spell or ability, so it's a little bit better than it could be. Next we have Expensive Mind Control, Spirit Away. I'm going to always call it Spirited Away, it's what I'm going to do. 7 mana for enchant creature, you control it, it has +2/+2, and has flying. You play this card, especially in sealed. It's mind control. A little bit more expensive, which makes it more difficult, but still fine. Next we have Stern Mentor. It's a 4 mana for a 2/2 soul bond that you can mill 2 each by tapping them. Again, don't get too sucked into the mill cards, because it's really difficult to make a good mill deck with what I've seen so far. Next you have Stolen Goods. Target opponent exiles cards from his or her library until he or she exiles a non-land, and you may cast it without paying its mana cost. This card seems so much fun. I'm not sure how good it is, but I would play it just for the fun factor. Also, if they have something insane and you get it, oh, seems like so good. And then you will probably just get like a 2 mana 2/2 or something. But still, so much fun. I like this fun card. Next you have Timeo, the Moon Sage. Take it, play it, win. That's true for most Planeswalkers, and she definitely fits the bill. Next you have Tandem Lookout. 2 colors, blue for a 2/1 soul bond that they have Curiosity, so whenever it deals damage, you may draw a card. I like this guy a lot. You soul bond it to a flyer, get it, the cantrip. Next you have Temporal Mastery. In sealed, I would play this card, just because you can probably, you know, take an extra turn, and it'd be pretty useful. And so I think it's fine. Again, I'm not going to go into the whole standard debate about Temporal Mastery. Next we have Vanishment. 5 mana, put target non-land permanent on top of its owner's library, or Miracle for blue. I like this card. The powerful thing is that it's an instant, and definitely something that I would consider. Also, there are butterflies on it. And lastly, we have Wingcrafter. It's blue for a 1/1 soul bond that, as long as it's paired with another creature, they both have flying. I think this guy's solid. You definitely don't want to play him on turn 1, but he can, you know, certainly soul bond something pretty big, and you can fly. Thank you guys for watching. Rate, comment, subscribe, and please check out the other parts.